Angel, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks for asking. Before we're gonna start talking about your last album, I just wanted to go back a little bit because I found out that you used to be in a band when you were in private school.
Oh, I did. Yes, that's a deep cut.
What kind of band was it?
Well, I was going to a private school at the time, and I had recently got into like punk rock, like the Ramones and stuff like that, and I wanted to be in kind of like a mix between like a Gwen Stefani, No Doubt, early No Doubt kind of band to like a punk band. And so I just sang. I didn't even play music at the time or play it live in that band. And the band was called Good Fight, and we played some shows with some college bands, and we did really well for a while, actually.
How old were you?
I was probably 16 or maybe even younger, 15 or 16. And I remember we went to this place, played our first show there called the Creepy Crawl. It was just like kind of a weird, it is the name that it sounds like. And it was this strange place. It was downtown, and people would park their cars there, and every day there was like some sort of break-in like to one of the cars, but it was this really cool like punk spot. And I remember seeing Battles there one year, and like seeing some bands that are huge now play there, and it was like this perfect tiny little club, all ages club. So that was a pretty cool experience, and I think eventually I started getting into writing like more lyric-driven stuff, and sort of went from that vibe to wanting to create more like English folk-based stuff. So I left the band and started doing my own thing, and then I moved to Chicago eventually.
Yeah.
So
because you also worked with Bonnie, Prince, and Billy. Bonnie, Prince, Billy.
yeah.
But at the same time, you also did your own projects.
Yes.
Yeah. How was that to?
Well, I released Strange Cacti on tape, and my friend Emily was running a small tape label, and she worked at a record store called Reckless Records, and she wanted to release a covers tape with me, and so I did that, and I was releasing Strange Cacti, and Strange Cacti did really well, so we released it as an LP, but I never really got to tour Strange Cacti because I was working on tour with Bonnie Prince Billy as a backup singer. And that lasted for a few years, and eventually when Halfway Home came out, I was like, I need to travel more and I need to promote my albums. So I took that step, and Emily actually is playing bass with me now. So the same woman who put out the covers tape. So yeah. So I feel it's very like my band is made up of friends from Chicago and friends in different scenes. So
makes it that easier to now work with people, because before your first two albums you were mostly doing it by yourself, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that stuff was very folk driven or like solo driven, and with this latest album it's more about like creating like music and making more of a statement with music and sound versus it being lyric heavy, and sort of the whole album was recorded live, so you sort of get that feeling, that live feeling that you wouldn't get from like something that was just chopped together. And I had been listening to a lot of like soul music and a lot of disco and a lot of like different newer kinds of things, you know, and so was my band, and I think we were all kind of, without even really talking about it, I can hear that they were ready for something new, and their playing was different, and it really opened up a lot of space for them to play more. So
does that make the song making process a little bit different, that there are now other people involved as well?
I don't think it's about the people. I think that the people to me represent more of thinking about a song, less about making some sort of huge statement with a word, and more about thinking about how people and more instruments and more sounds can build into something without saying anything and still make the same point, you know, and make it in a beautiful, more musical way versus a very direct, like lyric-driven, wordy, sort of over-the-top way. And to me, like, yeah, I guess if I were by myself, I might not make space for a guitar solo. But with Stuart and with the people that are involved in these recordings, I would think about that when we were recording, and I was like, we should have a break here, and let's just play some music, and show me what you got, like, let's see what sort of limits us at this point. And it was cool to see, after having played several years old material with them, to see that we were all kind of on a similar page, even if we like different music, like Josh is super, like, he's like this sort of encyclopedia of hip hop, and Stuart's like really into Stevie Wonder and really into like synths right now, and jazz, and Emily and I are on totally different pages. Like, I don't know, I'm starting to discover modern music where I was really obsessed with mostly older music and soul and a lot of older stuff, and I would kind of bypass anything that was happening now. So it's cool to see us sort of all merging towards something, at least for this album, towards something that is similar. And you can only see that when you've taken a break and listened to everyone, and heard that everyone has this ability to create something and bring something to the table. And in that way, it feels like a band, even if it's material that I've written and structures that I've written. So it's different than just hiring some random player. Like, I have talented other musicians working with me who have other visions and other creative paths, So because of that, and because of the sort of friendly atmosphere, you can see that in a live performance versus just, me calling someone and being like, who's the best guitarist in Seattle? Like, it's just like a little bit different than that, so.
Yeah, because it's very interesting, because I read somewhere that you said in an interview, I always like to find the artist's most raw album.
Yeah,
and when you listen to your
I forgot I said that. That's funny.
And when you listen to your first two albums, you can really hear that rawness, and that's like mostly because it's acoustic. Were you afraid to lose that sound with the last album?
With the last album, yes, but I was ready to step out of it. And even more so now, I think I'm less afraid of what people think and more just about, like, I want to make music that I like to make, and I want to make music that I like to listen to. And, like, if people want to hear folk music, they can listen to my earlier records, But, for example, there's a song at the end of this record called Pops. And to me, that is an example of my earlier work, and that it's lo-fi and it's just me with a piano. And that to me is a simple form of a continuing theme with me. Being like, stripped down, here's this instrument, here's my voice, that's all you've got. And I think it will be cool, in my opinion, to kind of keep that aspect to albums in the future. But I also like the changes that have happened, and I don't want it to not change. I don't want to keep it the same because it was successful in the past. Like, I want to take chances, and not for anyone else's sake, but because I need to keep it interesting for me. I need to challenge myself and test my own limits for it to be interesting to me. Otherwise, it's just like, what's the point of the whole thing? I'm just doing it for other people. You know what I mean? So.
Because staying sane and grounded is very important to you. But now with the success that's coming, is that hard?
I feel like I'm still like underground enough to live a normal life. But I do feel like there are times when I feel like I'm being judged, and it's because I'm tired and I'm not as appreciative, or I don't seem or look or act as appreciative, like in a setting where I show up to a venue and I'm just exhausted, and the promoter's really excited and they're like, Angel, we really want to, whatever you need, and I'm just like, I just need to be alone. Sometimes someone can take that the wrong way and be like, she wasn't very nice, and and I think there are things like that involved in just being a musician and being someone who's just like, you can't care about what every single person thinks of you. You have to just be like, I know that this whole thing is about an image that is myself, but even with that aside, I need to take care of myself. I need to protect myself from the image people project back upon me, and I need to just take a rest.
How do you do that?
For me, doing that is just being home and and not really being around people in the industry and just kind of like doing normal things, like go to softball games, and I like reading books, and I like going roller skating. I like, I like just, I live in this place that's in the mountains, so I go on hikes a lot with my friends. And this is all new to me because I lived in Chicago for 7 years, so it's still really exciting to me.
Is that also the reason why you decided to move out of Chicago?
I decided to move for many reasons. I still have a place in my heart for Chicago because there are different kinds of people that live there, and it's much more like a diverse city, like different kinds of art, different kinds of people, different kinds of attitudes, and to be surrounded by those things was really inspiring, but just didn't want to deal with the winter anymore. It was really rough. And I wanted to be in a place that was relaxing when I came home, because I was never relaxed. I was always traveling. So when I came to Asheville on tour, I met this woman, and she was just like joking with me, like, let me know when you move here, just to kind of be like, you should live here. But yeah, I've made some friends pretty easily there, and people don't really talk about what I do. Like, we just hang out and like get to know each other and go to, events together and hang out and, just spend time being real people. And I think that that's really important in balancing my lifestyle. Just having that time to reflect and just be a person and do normal things is really fun.
Yeah.
And really balancing in itself. But even when I'm doing that, sometimes I get bored and I miss being on the road. I miss playing music. I miss being surrounded by other musicians who are in my position, because being in a small town, not a lot of people are like in my position, and I can't relate to them in the same way that I could relate to other artists. So I went to this festival once, and it was like a traveling festival, and the musicians were playing the same shows together, and so we all had a chance to talk about our different trajectories and our different decisions, the different kinds of people working for us, like music industry stuff, and you would think that a lot of these kids would just be getting trashed and having fun at the festival and eating up all the fans fawning over them, but a lot of the time we were just talking about how we made it to this point and like what happened and who we liked and what we didn't like, and it was an interesting perspective to gain, and to know that that was out there, and it made me feel like I should judge people less, because.
Did you do that before?
Have I done like a traveling festival like that?
No, I mean, you said judge people less.
Yeah,
What do you mean?
I think in some ways you look at an artist and you look at an image like that just appears on social media, and you're like, that person thinks they're so blah blah blah. That person thinks they have everything figured out. That person projects this idea of this thing, and I think a lot of the time the person is intending to project an image, and whatever image that ends up being projected is totally out of their control. And sometimes it's in their control, and they mean it, and they stand for it, and they talk about it. But I do feel like, like for example, if I meet an artist and they're kind of rude, I'm just like, maybe they just haven't slept in days. Maybe they just got told that they didn't get the publishing deal that they wanted, or they like aren't playing that show because the promoter won't deal with them. They don't like the record, blah blah blah. And I think, when you're meeting people, yes, I think it's important, even as an artist, to be gracious and to always be aware and appreciate where you are, because it is a privileged, kind of luxurious lifestyle. But at times it can be really rough. You can be in the middle of a beautiful place in France and haven't slept for 3 days, and you don't notice that you're in a beautiful place, because all you want is just groundedness and consistency and people who actually know you to talk to you. And I think people don't think about that. They don't really focus on those things. They think of an artist as this like person who has it all, But you have to really find people that you can trust and who connect with you, and not because you're an artist, because you're a person who makes art,